All right, the mics are hot.
I'd like to call to order the July 21st, 2020 Board of Zoning Appeals meeting to order. Start with roll call, starting from my left.
Jake Ward. Hodge Patel.
Todd Chernick.
Kim Keller.
Don Kurtz.
For the record, Brenda Hampstead and Jason Cole are absent this evening. Tonight's BZA meeting is also being recorded and broadcast on the web and is also open virtually through a Zoom call. There's a couple guidelines I'd like to review before we move into the formal meeting. Everyone on the Zoom is muted and your videos are turned off by default to minimize any disruptions. If you'd like to make a comment during the public hearing portions of this meeting, please raise your hand by clicking the icon labeled Participants at the bottom of your screen and then click the button labeled Raise Hand. If you are calling into the meeting on a phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9 on your keypad. Once the moderator calls your name, please unmute yourself by clicking on the microphone button on the bottom of your screen or by pressing *6 on your phone. I'll read these instructions again when we get to public comment to make sure everyone has an opportunity to be involved. I'd like to ask everyone to stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item number 4 on our agenda is approval or amendment of tonight's agenda. I'd make a motion to approve the agenda as published.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor of approval as published say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Motion passed unanimous. Item number 5 on our agenda is approval of the June meeting minutes. As published, I'd also make a motion to approve those as published.
Second.
Is there any discussion regarding our June 2020 meeting minutes? All those in favor of approving say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. That motion also passed unanimous. Item number 6 is consideration of primary variances. The Board of Zoning Appeals is a quasi-judicial board comprised of resident volunteers of the City of Milton. The board is charged with hearing requests for variances from the standards of the zoning ordinance and appeals of administrative determination. With regard to decisions on primary variances, which we'll hear tonight, the board's basis for decision is provided by these 4 considerations. A, relief, if granted, would not offend the spirit or intent of the ordinance. And B, there are such extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property that the literal or strict application of the ordinance would create an unnecessary hardship due to the size, shape, or topography, or other extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions not caused by the variance applicant. And C, relief, if granted, would not cause a substantial detriment to the public good and surrounding properties. And D, that the public safety, health, and welfare are secured and that substantial justice is done. With that, I'd like to introduce item V20-12725 Oxford Lakes Court. Would staff please present?
Yes. Petition number V20-12725 Oxford Lakes Court. The requested variance is to allow an existing accessory structure to be located in the side yard setback. The site is a 1.69 acre lot located along the north side of Oxford Lakes Court in the Oxford Lakes subdivision. It is zoned AG1 and is located in the rural Milton overlay. The applicant submitted for a building permit to construct a screen porch to the accessory structure. Staff was reviewing the building permit when the structure was identified to be located in the side yard setback. The structure was built between 2003 and 2004, which was before the city was incorporated. The structure was not present in 2003 from the Fulton County GIS aerial, Exhibit B, and then was present in 2005, Exhibit C. Section 64-416I states that accessory structures may be located in rear or side yards, but shall not be located within a minimum yard. Since the applicant is legalizing an existing accessory structure that is located in the side yard setback, a variance is required. On July 7th, 2020, the Design Review Board met and had the following comments. They said to keep consistency with the architecture for the screened porch, and they had no issues with the overall scope. The staff response for this variance was the applicant is proposing to legalize the existing accessory structure that encroaches into the side yard setback, Exhibit A, to construct a porch onto the rear of the structure. The structure was built sometime between 2003 and 2004, which is before the city became incorporated, Exhibit B and C. The proposed screen porch addition will be out of the setbacks and compliant with the zoning ordinance for distance from the property lines. Allowing the encroachment of the existing structure in the side yard setback for an accessory structure will not cause detriment to the public good. Public safety, health, and welfare will be secured, and substantial justice will be done for the surrounding properties. Staff recommends approval of this request.
Just one question, Mr. Chair. On the DRB,
That was a typo for the first part, or what are you talking about? Or which section?
yeah, you just wrote the DRB did not meet.
That was a typo on that. But
So
yes,
officially, that's crossed out.
correct.
Okay.
So they did not meet, and there is no guidance.
So they did meet.
They
did. Okay.
Those are the things. I think we need to strike the DRB did not meet because of lack
Correct.
of quorum.
They did meet on the July 7th meeting, and that was their comments.
Thank you for clarifying that, Bob.
Yes, sir.
Are there any questions for staff?
There was none submitted with the application.
Okay.
But there is in the
Letter from
packet
the
the HOA approval letters.
Okay. The board have any questions for staff before I ask the applicant to come forward? Okay, would the applicant please come forward and share with us more about your plans? Please announce your name and address for the record.
Thank you. Rick Stewart, 725 Oxford Lakes Court. We purchased the home in 2003, May of 2003. The workshop was there. We have a main house, and we call this the workshop. It was there. At the time, at closing, we found out that there was this setback issue. So there's a letter in the packet from 2003 where I got the HOA to say that it's okay, that they wouldn't make me tear it down or anything. And then when we decided to do the screen porch addition this year, I went to the HOA, and part of that process includes, I'm in a cul-de-sac. You can see it in some of the pictures. All my neighbors in the cul-de-sac approved. Actually, my neighbors behind me did not sign on, but I've talked to all of them as well. And so we got approval for that, so that's in there. And then I just laid out pictures in the PowerPoint that'll just kind of show we're adjacent to the pool, swim, and tennis. So there's a wood fence that's kind of the property line. The numbers in here in the packet were estimated, and I measured it out, and we're like 24 feet 6 inches from one corner, but 18 feet 6 inches from the other, and that's where the variance kicks in.
Okay, so you mentioned that you had neighbor support. Is that in writing, and has that been given to the city staff as well?
Yes, it's in the HOA. There's a second letter from the HOA dated April 9th, 2020. Now, I don't think it specifically states it in here, but my submittal to the HOA had 3 letters of support, which I have 3 neighbors around me in the cul-de-sac.
Okay, yeah, we only see the HMS response, not the neighbors as well.
Right.
So thank you for clarifying. I was not able to determine from the drawings that you submitted, the size of the quote workshop?
The workshop's 24 by 24 feet. It's a two-story. It looks kind of like a two-car garage almost, but it's not. It's just a workshop, and it's got a little studio above it.
Okay. So your current use and intended use for this, it would be as a workshop.
Correct.
I'm trying to make sure that the distinction between an accessory structure and a dwelling.
Oh, gotcha.
So does this workshop have a bedroom, a bathroom, a kitchen?
No, it will be. We're going to add a bathroom on it, but not a bedroom or a kitchen. I don't have a basement. It's currently my basement. It's full of junk. I'm now going to make it a workshop. That's my intent.
Okay. And the reason I'm trying to be clear on this is a guest house or a dwelling would qualify if it has a bedroom, a bathroom.
It will have no bedroom, it will have a bathroom.
And a kitchen.
But no kitchen.
Okay.
Yeah. No closet. No
Staff,
bedroom.
just for the record, could you please read the definition of a dwelling into the record so that it's clear here? Because a variance request for a dwelling or a guest house is different than an accessory structure.
Okay.
It's clear to me that you're looking as an accessory structure, but I just want to make sure it's in the record.
Okay.
All right, so 64-1 under definitions, the definition for dwelling unit means one or more rooms constructed with cooking, sleeping, and sanitary facilities designed for and limited to use as living quarters for one family.
Okay. So thank you for helping us understand your intended use and the size of that structure. Are there additional questions for the applicant?
So would there be any future plans to convert that at a certain point? Because the variance as submitted wouldn't allow for that.
Correct. No.
Okay. Any other questions? So the way that this works is we will open it up for public comment, and you'll have an opportunity to make a closing comment at the end if you care to.
Okay.
Okay? So, well, you can actually take a seat, Mr.
you.
Stewart. We'll now open for the application for public comment, and we'll do this in two sections, equal time. First, a 10-minute session in total for the public to speak in favor, followed by an equal 10-minute session for the public to speak in opposition. And I will, for the sake of making sure we're inclusive to everyone here as well as who may be joining via phone or Zoom, if you are on Zoom and would like to comment, please raise your hand by clicking on the labeled participants at the bottom of your screen and click the button labeled raise hand. If you're calling into the meeting on a phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9 on your keypad. Once the moderator calls your name, please unmute yourself by clicking on the microphone button on the bottom of your screen or by pressing *6 on your phone. At this point, Cody, do we have any interest in public comment to speak in favor?
We do not have any participants via Zoom.
Okay. Is there anyone here present that would care to speak in favor of this application? Okay. We'll now move to an opportunity for anyone to speak in opposition. Do we see anyone?
There's nobody in opposition via Zoom.
Is there anyone here present to speak in opposition? Okay. I'll open it back up for the applicant to make any closing comments if you care to.
No, thank you.
All right. For the record, the applicant did not require a rebuttal or closing. Are there any questions for staff or the applicant before I close the public comment and move to a motion? Yes, Bob.
I just wanted, this abuts the pool, the HOA's pool, the recreation.
The common area, yes.
And I was wondering if the applicant can tell us if the landscaping buffer that's along that property line, is that part of the HOA or is that part on his property? I just don't want to, I want to make sure we maintain that landscape buffer along the property line.
Oh, and to know whose property that's actually on.
Who's, yeah.
Can you comment regarding the existing landscape buffer?
The question we've got, if you can see in the packet, that fence line is pretty much the property line. Mm-hmm. And then there's probably another 20 feet over to their fence and then to the pool deck. There's landscaping on my side, which is, what are they called, arborvitae? What kind of trees?
Right.
Yeah, so we got...
So those are on your property?
Those are on my property, and then there's some planted on the other side as well, on the pool property.
So there is a screen, and I guess from the staff requested just to be some sort of motion to make sure that he maintains that.
Maintain
And
the
doesn't
screening?
take it out.
Yeah, I see the pictures. And they're
Yeah, we do plan to maintain it. Happy to.
Page 13 and 14 of the application shows pretty clear evidence of the screening that was identified,
Yeah.
as well as page 15. Okay. Are there any other questions for the applicant or for staff before I move to a motion? Okay, thank you for clarifying. You can have a seat.
Thank you.
At this point, I'll note that the public comment is closed, and I'll open the floor for a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion on petition number V20-12, 725 Oxford Lake Court, to allow the existing accessory structure to be located in the side yard setback, that it is a accessory structure and it is not going to be converted as a dwelling under this variance if it was approved. Additionally, the landscape buffer between the HOA's common property and the applicant's property would also have to be maintained. And I'm referencing the site plan dated April 28, 2003 by Jackson and Harwick.
I'll second that. So we have a motion to approve to allow an existing accessory structure to be located in the side yard setback as used as an accessory structure, with conditions to maintain the existing landscape buffer, and according to the site plan, April 28, 2003, Jackson and Harwick. Is there any discussion? I think it's important to
Can I
note.
just make one clarification, because I see it looks like there was a fax date or an email date of April 28th. The date on the actual drawing appears to be April 16th.
The actual date of the survey
Right.
is April 16, 2003. Okay. Do we have a received date by staff anywhere? Doesn't look like it.
And is it the only one that's in the file?
Correct. That's the only site plan that was submitted.
So April 16, 2003 is the official date that you would
Correct.
like us to reference? I would comment, we have 4 considerations in reviewing all these applications. I believe this application meets all 4 conditions. It fits within the spirit and intent of our ordinances in the sense that it's an existing structure that existed prior to, but it also, there's mitigating factors in terms of the buffer that's been managed and maintained, which there's situations that are particular to this being unique. Again, this was built prior to our ordinances being adopted, and we see, as staff has indicated, no detriment to the public good or surrounding properties based on the evidence submitted on this case, and public safety, health, and welfare would be secured. If there's no further comment, all those in favor of approving V20-12 with conditions as noted, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. This application is approved by unanimous vote. Good luck with your project. The next item on our agenda is V20-13, 14102 Seabiscuit. Would staff please present?
Petition number V20-13-14102 Seabiscuit. The requested variances is to allow the existing house to be located in the 75-foot impervious setback, section 20-4262. And the second is to allow a pool deck, and pool equipment to encroach into the 50-foot undisturbed buffer and 75-foot impervious setback, section 20-42612. The site is a 1.29 acre lot located along the north side of Seabiscuit in the Triple Crown subdivision. It is zoned community unit plan and is located in the Rural Milton overlay. The final plat for that phase in Triple Crown was recorded in 2005, which only had the 25-foot state buffer. The first part of the variance is to allow the existing house to encroach into the 75-foot impervious setback, which was built before the Milton stream buffers were implemented, and that is found in Exhibit A and B. The second part of the variance is to allow the proposed pool deck, and pool equipment to encroach into the 50-foot Milton stream buffer and the 75-foot impervious setback. The applicant originally had the pool encroaching into both the 50-foot and 75-foot buffer, but worked with staff to move the pool only into the 75-foot impervious buffer, and that is Exhibit A. Section 20-4262 states that an additional 25-foot impervious setback is required in adjacent to a stream. The applicant proposes to legalize the existing house to encroach into the 75-foot impervious setback. Section 20-42612 states that an undisturbed natural vegetative buffer shall be maintained for 50 feet measured horizontally on both banks as applicable of the streams as measured from the point of rested vegetation, and an additional 25-foot impervious setback is required in adjacent to a stream. The applicant proposes to construct a pool deck, and pool equipment in the 50-foot undisturbed buffer and 75-foot impervious setback. A two-part variance is required. On July 7th, 2020, the DRB did meet, but that's a scratch on that, but they did meet. And the only comment they have was to work with staff to move the pool out of the 50-foot undisturbed buffer. The staff response: the applicant worked with staff to move the pool out of the 50-foot undisturbed buffer, and the applicant now has the proposed pool deck, and pool equipment only in the 75-foot impervious setback, Exhibit A. The legalization of the existing house to encroach to the 75-foot impervious would make the house conform to the current stream buffer regulations, Exhibit A and B. Allowing the encroachment of the existing structure in the 75-foot impervious setback and in the proposed pool deck, and pool equipment in the 75-foot impervious setback will not cause detriment to the public good. Public safety, health, and welfare will be secured, and substantial justice will be done to the surrounding properties. Staff recommends approval of the two-part variance request.
Are there any questions for staff? I have one question or observation. The requested variance is two-part. One is to address the existing house, and part two is to address the proposed pool deck, and pool equipment, of which now, based on the site plan, looks to only encroach into the 75-foot impervious setback. Is that your understanding?
Yes.
We'll clarify that with the applicant as well. Are there any other questions for staff before we have the applicant come forward? Okay. Would the applicant please come forward and present your plan? Please state your name and address for the record.
Brian Wolbrock, 14102 Seabiscuit, Milton, Georgia.
Okay. So we have your application as well as the site plans. Do you have the pool construction company here as well?
No.
Okay.
Neptune
so you're representing
Pool.
yourself.
It's Neptune Pools.
Neptune. Can you describe a little bit about what this plan for this construction?
I don't know. It's kind of just a kidney-style pool. 34, 35 foot by about 19 feet wide. We squeezed it a little bit to move it inside. We were only about a foot or two inside the 50-foot variance, or setback. So we pushed it out a little bit, or pushed it closer to the house a little bit to meet the request.
So that's something you've been working with staff on redesign?
Yeah, that's, yep, from the design review.
Okay. Well, good. Thank you for doing that. The square box on this plan that looks to be at the corner of the driveway and along the 10-foot building setback, what is that?
Anybody got any ideas?
So is that to the left of the driveway?
Yes.
That is actually the concrete washout that is required for all pool permits for when they start pouring concrete. That's for where they dump the remaining concrete.
Okay.
Yep, sorry. That right there is the pool equipment is right to the right of the existing fire pit. If you see that. Yes, so
Yep, I do see it. Okay. I was concerned that square box was the pool equipment, so I think we now understand what
Yes.
that is now. It looks like from your survey plan, as well as from me looking at the site, that it slopes to the rear of the property.
That's correct. Very steeply once you get past the fire pit.
And so that, even though this is an in-ground pool, I'm assuming there's some walls involved in this project? Retaining wall?
No, just a small retaining wall to hold the deck up. It's fairly level where they're going to put the pool.
Okay.
And then it starts to fade off. And that's where the pool stops.
Okay. So along this pool deck, it looks like there's some boxes and X marks. Is that a pool, or is that where the wall would be?
No, the wall is directly right in underneath the pool deck, so that it extends out from the pool.
Yes.
And it's just a 2 to 3 foot high sectional concrete.
Okay. And so part of why I'm asking the questions regarding potential walls and grade is you're right up against the 50-foot buffer setback.
Okay.
And oftentimes we will ask that a temporary fence be placed along that 50-foot buffer setback to mitigate or prevent construction activity into the 50-foot, whether it's driving bobcats around and disturbing that 50-foot unnecessarily. Can you speak to that and whether or not that would create a problem if we ask for a temporary fence along that buffer?
I can't speak to the fact whether it would cause them a problem. The area, there was a wood pile there. There's a large void with really no trees or just pine straw for about 10 or 15 feet. That was kind of the edge of the lawn. And so it really they wouldn't be disturbing anything if they went to that level. Past that, I don't think there's too many trees and too steep a hill for them to do much anything.
Okay. Is there any planting plan that you have in mind for the area along the pool into that 50-foot?
Yeah, I would like to put some shrubs and small trees or something along that just to, beautify.
Enhance it, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So back to my original reason for this is to we oftentimes will look to put a barrier there to mitigate further intrusion. In this case, it doesn't sound like there's a lot of area that could be damaged. However, given your interest in the planting as well, I may add that we oftentimes request a planting after the construction if there is any disturbance. So it sounds like that would be fit within your intentions.
That's the plan, yeah, that's the plan.
Okay.
It is.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the board to the applicant? Yes, Don?
I'm not sure, am I reading this wrong, but the edge of the pool is 12 feet from the property line on the side, according to this?
Yes.
And that's not a problem?
Is that a question for staff?
Well, it seems to me there should be a side yard setback, right? 25 feet?
If staff could please comment regarding the setback?
So this phase of Triple Crown is a CUP. So when they first developed it, they kind of picked their own setbacks. And the side yard setbacks for this phase was 10 feet. And also the code, section 64-1609B1 for swimming pools private for detached dwellings. Swimming pools shall be allowed in side and rear yards of single-family dwellings in any district and may also be allowed at the back of the house on a double-frontage single-family residential lot as approved by the departments. And then subsection A, pools, pool equipment, and their decks must be a minimum of 10 feet from all property lines except that when perimeter setbacks are required, for example, in neighborhood unit plans or TR zoned district pools, pool equipments and decks cannot be located in perimeter setbacks. So with this one is compliant with that code reference.
We also got.
If that makes sense.
Neighbor on that side and a neighbor on both sides signed approval letters.
Letters of support?
Yes.
That was a great. Could you please hand those to Cody?
Yeah, and
our staff?
there's also an approval from the subdivision.
So Cody, we're saying in any case, the pool's allowed to encroach, or are we saying because of the specific way this development was approved, that they're allowed to be, they only have to have a 10-foot side yard setback?
Yeah, so it's no matter what, all pools in the city of Milton that is zoned pretty much a residential can be 10 feet off of the property lines.
Okay.
Rather side or rear.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions for the applicant?
So if we required temporary screening to protect that buffer area, would you see any issue with that? Along the wall? Would you have any issue if we required temporary screening along that buffer where that wall is going to be constructed?
I guess I would ask that, because it would be really hard to work with a screen that was so close. I mean, it's just inside the buffer. So if we were to put a screen there, it'd be really hard to build because you have to build from the screen side. Mm-hmm. So if, like I said, there's probably at least a 8-10 foot strip of land that's just pine straw that, we could put it right there and put a screen along that to keep,
okay. And then you'd be willing to go back and revegetate that area if there was any disturbance?
I'm sorry?
Then you're okay with revegetating that area if there's any disturbance, if we move that
absolutely.
temporary fencing back?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, and one of the questions I asked the staff to begin with is the original variance request was for this project to encroach at some level into the 50-foot undisturbed buffer. As you worked on the design with staff and your pool construction contractor, no structure, wall, foundation, pool are actually encroaching into the 50-foot buffer.
That's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Bob.
a couple of comments just for the board. One is any pool piping that's coming from the pool equipment to the pool cannot be in the 50-foot either. It would have to go underneath the deck and then to the pool. We can't have it going around. So, in other words, there's absolutely no disturbance into the 50 with pool piping as well.
Which, based on where the pool equipment is, that should be achievable, but I think your abundance of clarity.
Okay.
Bob, is that right?
Yep. And the other one is that the board, when it's this close and it's encroaching in the 75, generally has always conditioned it to have flow wells. for drainage. And the other one is that the 42-inch wall, these modular walls, usually they tier, so the bottom is further out than the top. So we want to make sure that the bottom is at the 50, not the top. Okay. So you might lose 6 inches or a foot or something as that wall tiers up.
Okay.
Okay, so make sure that that part of it doesn't go into the 50. And the other one is the pool barrier, which is basically a fence that goes around the pool for protection, being that it's going to be most likely in the 50. We do allow fences to be in those areas, but they have to be open. It can't be a solid wood fence or something that would block water or penetrations or anything like that. It'd have to be like an open metal fence.
Or a Milton fence.
Railing kind of fence.
It's one of those four.
Four-board fence?
Four-board
fence would be satisfactory.
As it on its own, or would it have to also have the mesh
have the screen in there as well.
They'll have
for the pool.
the building department, when
I
they do
believe
the
it
review,
does
they'll
have
make
to
sure
have a
that
screen.
it meets
Yeah.
the barrier.
Yeah.
So it has
I
the mesh
believe that's what
inside.
they've got.
Yeah, but the four-board would work. That would work.
So in terms of the fencing requirement for a pool, that would come up during the pool building permit review, is that correct? In other words, do we need to condition that, or would you recommend
I
we
think that
condition
would
that?
be okay. I
Okay.
think it's okay.
When they go to sign off the pool, they ensure that they have the locks on the proper locks, self-closing gates, that the mesh is in the fence and all that stuff.
But we usually do condition for the flow wells to make sure that they put those in.
And are you familiar with what our city architect is referring to with a flow well? Would you please
Any
elaborate?
drainage that comes off the pool or pool deck goes into a buried sort of storage tank that then contains the water and allows it to percolate into the soil slowly over time. So they size it in such a way that it's set for, say, a 25-year rainfall, and it's just a certain amount of rain that comes down during a certain period of time, so that the pool company, and we'll work with them to size it correctly. But that would be something that you bury somewhere on the property within the 75, not in the 50, so that you don't disturb the 50, but they'll bury it somewhere. So any water that comes off goes into a drain, flows underneath, you don't see it because it ponds underneath.
Is it like a French drain, or is it actually a plastic? Or
It's just a big container, basically, like a storage container that they put underneath the ground with perforated sides, right.
And it seeps into more slowly versus having a directed flow or,
Right, so there's
further erosion
water
issue.
coming off the deck and all doesn't flow down and go into the creek
Okay.
directly. It kind of buffers that.
I'm pretty certain Neptune pools would be very familiar with
They're
these.
very familiar. They've been here before.
I do have another question.
Yes, Don?
So the area that's all around the kidney-shaped pool, mainly between the pool and the house,
Yes.
is that all new concrete there, or is that something that was there prior with the house? Or, I mean, what is that? Is that all a new concrete?
Is that your pool deck?
Yeah, that's our patio that's underneath the deck, and the deck structure
The deck.
is that square that goes right up to and touches the circular fire pit.
Oh, maybe I think I'm talking more to the left of the fire pit. I mean,
Yeah,
you have the kidney shape.
It's kind of a V-shaped deck, and part of it is a screened-in porch, and then there's a concrete slab underneath that. Does that make sense?
It looks like there's additional pool decking that's being added.
The only pool decking that's being added is kind of the gray piece that extends from that square block that's at the corner of the house, and it kind of arcs to the pool.
Is that what you're speaking of, Don?
I'm getting a little, I think so, yes. But then what is that sort of rainbow-shaped or arch-shaped on the diagram that goes between the house and the pool? What is?
Yeah, that's brick pavers.
Okay, so that's brick pavers, and then to the left and the right of those pavers, is that all new concrete, or is that an existing deck? Or I don't get the picture of what's
Are you doing
around this
pavers?
pool.
Are you doing concrete deck?
Can I approach to see what he's pointing at?
Well, we have diagram.
Yeah, we can't put this up, can we? It's up to you, Don, if you want to put your mask on,
Sure.
if you're comfortable.
You're talking about the shaded area from the hot tub?
Looks like there's a hot tub. Is the hot tub elevated from the pool some? So is it a two-tier pool deck?
Yes, it is.
Between the pool and the house, right?
Yeah, what is that? Is that new concrete, basically? is the
Yes,
question.
Those are all brick pavers that come around between the house and the pool. The gray area are all brick pavers, and then there's 3 steps or 4 steps, and then there's a continued sidewalk that goes over to the
The rainbow
jacuzzi.
thing you're seeing are steps.
It's up to a higher tier for the jacuzzi area.
Okay. The point of my question really is whether you're increasing here the amount of non-pervious surface as you're putting in the pool with that area between the house and the pool. Is that pervious? Is it not pervious? Are you changing that by putting concrete in to not allow water to percolate? That's the
So
what I'm
what
trying
material
to
is
get
the
at.
pool deck? Is it
It's
pavers?
paver bricks.
Okay.
In order to meet Don's request, he'd have to put in pervious pavers.
And I still don't get, are they already there, or is that all
No,
being
that's
replaced?
all new.
Okay, so that's all new. And do you understand what I'm trying to get at in terms of pervious pavers, where there's drainage between them versus solid concrete-filled pavers?
I don't have an idea of whether if that's necessary. I mean, on the small sidewalk side, I wouldn't think, I can understand where there's a bigger section there, that there's more volume, which is, I think, what the drainage that they were just talking about, the special
There's
drain.
different types of, you're in an area that's supposed to be pervious. So what it does is you can actually go out and buy, instead of just a solid concrete brick, a cement brick, or, a clay brick, you go out and buy a pervious brick. It actually drains through the brick itself.
Okay.
And that's what,
So are all the bricks pervious or just?
no, you'd have to buy a pervious brick.
Okay,
When
so
you
would
put them
there
in,
be-
you'd have to actually make sure that you purchase a brick that shows that it's pervious. All bricks are not. I mean, they do leak over time, but you can buy a pervious paver, and it drains much quicker through it.
Okay. And I would just need one per every 10
No,
square
you
feet?
just, all of them would be,
All
they
of
look the
Yeah.
same. You can't tell the difference.
Okay.
You can't tell the difference, really.
I don't know what, if they're more expensive, I'm guessing that they didn't quote that in my quote.
Yeah, maybe not.
No, if they didn't state that they were pervious pavers, then you're probably not getting pervious pavers. But I think that's what Don is.
That's what I was trying to
That's what
clarify.
Don was trying to say, that.
And does that, I guess I go back to, Bob, what you were talking about with this drainage that comes off.
Yes.
If that collects that water that's not going into the ground, is that sufficient versus requiring pervious pavers? Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, what happens, rainfall is kind of funny. Sometimes you have an instant rainfall and it comes down real hard. In that case, it would go into the flow well. But on an average rainfall that's lighter, what you're requesting would work. It would just keep it in that area just as if it wasn't there.
So the flow well is a form of mitigation to impervious surface.
Yeah, for real heavy rainfalls that come down real fast and hard, like, it comes in real fast and heavy, and it will collect it at that point so it doesn't run off into the creek.
Because even with pervious pavers in a heavy rainfall, you're going to have runoff.
Yeah. And actually, when he goes through site plan review, if he uses a pervious paver, it's going to help him out a lot more when they end up looking at all this site plan mitigation stuff that you're going to have to go through when you go through site review. So I think it's a good comment. It would be applicable.
And can I just state, just for the record, in the top right-hand corner, the area calculations, you can see the existing impervious area that's on the site, and then the proposed new impervious. So that number should include the pool deck, pool equipment, and any kind of other new impervious surface that will be added to this site, just so the board is aware of that number.
Thank you for calling that out.
That whole lot?
Yes, so the whole lot is 1.29 acres or 56,064 square feet.
Okay.
And generally, that's how we calculate the lot coverage. I believe I'll have to go double check either whether this is a public or private, but public streets, you cannot exceed 20%, and on private streets, You cannot exceed 25%. So with their existing and new impervious, they'll be roughly around 14%. So that's well under the allowance, the max.
For the whole lot.
Correct.
But we're talking about how much is within that impervious buffer, right? We've increased substantially the amount of impervious in that buffer then versus what there was, right?
Right. So what they've noted there is proposed new impervious is an additional 1,300.
Right. Which, I don't know how much it is out of this whole 25-foot buffer, how much that is, but anyway, I think they understand the point. Because we're talking about an impervious buffer, that area maybe should be considered to have some pervious pavers, and Bob described it. I don't know what that does to your project in terms of cost or anything else. I just don't know, but.
So to understand, the concern is to get water through down to the ground.
Right, not to all go into the stream.
Okay.
So,
and the probability of that happening would be increased if it were heavy rainfall, which is what this special drain is going to be for.
For the real heavy rainfall.
Yeah.
For an average rainfall, it will act just as if it wasn't there with the pervious. I think you could do both and probably help you on some of your other calculations when you go to file. And it'd be nice. You can never tell the difference visually between the pavers.
Okay.
You just let water flow through them.
In your instance, you're starting with a paver type of pool deck versus a poured concrete pool deck. So you won't see as Bob is suggesting, as much of the visual difference, but you will notice it in your pocketbook.
Lucky me.
More than I'm guessing, right, Bob?
I'm sure.
So aesthetically, the difference shouldn't be apparent if it's pervious or impervious.
Bob,
Correct.
would you recommend him talking to Neptune about the impact of pervious pavers around pool decks and allowing water to seep through that pool deck rather than be diverted through drains and the impact it may have on the backside of a pool structure?
I don't think it'll have any impact because if you look at the other sides, a lot of pools just have grass going up to them.
Okay.
A lot of people don't want decks or decks around, like a solid surface around the entire pool. So a lot of times people just put grass right up to their pool coping, and it works fine. Same thing. It wouldn't have any structural significance.
And I think what Bob was also suggesting, in heavy rain, that's diverted away and not down anyhow.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, anything heavy would just drain into the inlet and then be stored away from that pool.
Why would light rain not divert into the inlet? I have, on my decking, speaking from personal experience, the light rain diverts. Neptune did my pool as well. They did a great job. All of that light rain diverts into those drains as is. It goes into said reservoir just as easily as it would go through the pervious. I just want to know the value that it brings to add cost to our neighbor if it's not needed.
Well, I thought Don brought up a good point that it is an area that's the code asks for it to be pervious. He's making it, impervious, and it's a way to mitigate that concern that Don has is to put pervious. We've asked, this board has asked for pervious pavers around with other applications similar to this quite often. So I think it would be applicable.
Yeah. I guess in my mind, the applicability is, there's code in Milton that says there's this additional 25-foot buffer that has to be impervious. And we are, as a board, about to approve something or not approve, whatever. We're making a decision on whether we allow somebody to basically get a variance to that code.
Sure.
So shouldn't we be making every effort to try to, to not be a detriment to the code, right? To try to meet the code. And I'm not for trying to make extra cost here. Believe me.
I understand, and I think that if there were greens or something that needed the water, I could see that it would be important that it would be pervious. I came from Michigan where a lot of people had basements and a lot of people had water in their basements, and so anytime you can keep water away from the house, so as this brick paver comes right up to the house, I'd rather have, it impervious and move it a little ways away and have a drain somewhere and pull it away and slowly seep it into the vegetated area between the pool deck and the creek below, and do it slowly so that it doesn't harm or have too much runoff or cause any destruction to that. But if we need to do pervious bricks, I certainly will bring it to the
Well, that's part.
Neptune's
We're in
attention.
discussion here, and that's part of what we're discussing.
I have one other question for Bob.
Hang on, I think the city attorney.
I did want to narrow the folks to make sure it was directed at questions to the applicant, as we still do have the public comment portion to get through before the board kind of debates.
Final discussion, sure. Mr. Kurt, do you have an additional question for the architect?
Bob made a comment earlier to the applicant about.
Do you have a question for Bob?
Bob, yes.
Go ahead.
Okay. Bob, earlier you said something about it will be caught later. What does that mean? Is there another process that's going to look at this anyway, no matter what we do, and it's going to decide whether or not it's the proper drainage?
Right. When he goes for his building permit, it has to go through site review. And part of site review is going to be looking at how much pervious and impervious he has and where the water's draining.
Okay.
So, but it would, I think at this level today, it would be best if the board put a condition so that when site does look at it, they know that would be in there. I think it would just help your calculations. The more pervious pavers you have, the smaller the flow wells have to be. So in a sense, even though he's paying more for the pervious pavers, it will decrease the size of the flow well, so there'll be less money for him there. It sort of balances out.
Okay.
And I think it meets Don's concerns, which I thought were pretty
Gotcha.
valid.
Thanks,
Yes,
Bob.
sir.
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, but I'm still confused. It seemed like from what Cody said, he meets the requirements of the amount of impervious portion to the size of his lot, it only being 14%. Is that not correct?
That is correct. You're allowed to do a certain percentage of impervious on a lot, but not in the 75-foot
Impervious
zone. So it's sort of like we're taking one section of the code and applying it, but yes, he's allowed to pave other parts of his lot and meet that criteria, but not in that 75-foot. So I think what Don was trying to say, if I can add to that commentary, is that it's in this area it's not supposed to be paved.
Well, I guess since I don't know what the increased cost is, I'm not comfortable putting that burden on someone because it doesn't look like a lot of space to me compared to the size of the lot. For how much is going to be impervious.
And I'm just saying from a costing perspective, it will decrease the size of the flow well, so make it smaller substantially, and he'll just pay for the difference in the paver. He's putting brick pavers. If he was doing concrete, I think there'd be a much different cost between brick and concrete. That would probably increase a lot. You will have probably a small increase in the price of materials of the impervious, of the pervious paver, but when he goes to put the flow well in, it would reduce the size of the flow well. So sort of, I think it self-balances pretty much and meets the criteria that one of the board members had, but it's up to the board as a whole.
Are there any?
Chairman, if you'll pause for 1 second, I'm hearing technical issues.
Yeah, I just got a phone call. We need to wrap this meeting up. We've having some issues via Zoom, so we can make this quick. So I'll be right back.
Okay.
Oh, sorry about that.
Are there any additional questions for the applicant before we move to public comment?
If you'll pause for 1 second, I'm not sure what that means. If you give me.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we take a 10-minute recess in order to address the technical issues.
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor of a 10-minute recess, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. We are officially on a 10-minute recess. Just voted for a 10-minute recess?
If you've moved for that, that's perfect.
We have.
Yeah, great.
Sorry for the hold up. You can
No,
take
no
a
problem. I
seat.
didn't know, he said we had to hurry up, so I don't know if we.
I think he's thinking
we'll stay here and we won't go anywhere in case we need to get started
Yeah.
earlier.
This is their training session. What to do and what not to do.
Good idea.
Sometimes. The fact that it's within the impervious area is what makes it so sensitive.
Right,
But he's already using
the people with the two pools and
But he's already doing brick pavers, which doesn't make the cost difference that dramatic. If he was doing poured concrete, and we said you need to go to impervious pavers, now the cost difference is much more dramatic.
okay.
But and cost is maybe a consideration, but it's really more the fact he's asking for an impact in the buffer.
I think 75 feet's a lot.
Yeah. Hey, you stole my pen.
Oh, I thought I was passing it along to Don.
Oh. Oh, take it back.
I'll take it for you. I'll use
I've never signed one of those before, so I didn't know. Yeah, they just do it for 10 minutes. They might have missed it maybe last month.
Okay.
Actually, you're right. I think it's been a couple months since I've actually signed it.
No.
I figured they could go to the meeting minutes and see who's in attendance. But
I'm trying to think back. I don't know when we've ever taken a recess before.
I don't think so.
It sounded like somebody was very unhappy on that call. They ended up taking it outside. Yeah. The gal was
really
screaming
we had a really long
Here?
meeting. Remember Kim
on the phone with them. Yeah.
Oh, really?
That's very upset.
About
A black screen? I don't know. I didn't hear
oh,
a
about
whole lot of it. I was using the restroom.
objecting that the Zoom was down or something?
Yeah.
Well,
Takes their Tuesday nights very seriously.
We're still live. But
Oh, yeah. Yeah, when the lights flickered, it kicked me off of all the, so that's why I had to go in the back. And apparently Facebook was streaming just on black. And they called me, say, shut down the meeting. I'm like, who's Hello?
I think it's going to be may not continue on Zoom. Finish the meeting.
We have a physical meeting. That should overtake the Zoom. People are committed to come in.
So be ready.
Yeah, people ought to come in and sit down and watch the meeting, I'm sure. Nothing.
Has he just tried to log back in?
I don't know what he's doing.
I think he got back on. Well, I don't know. I'll wait till he. I did it.
I guess
His fourth hand.
technically, you're not supposed to go forward. What I'm getting is you're not supposed to go forward if the Zoom's not working or something. That's what I'm getting out of this, but I don't know for sure.
What is the Zoom not working?
I don't know that it's a requirement. I mean, never has been in the past.
Right.
Someone else can make that decision.
Uh-huh.
We have 5 more minutes.
Seems to me that's more of a courtesy than having a Zoom available, but not my decision.
I mean, if we had people on it and waiting in line to speak, you said there was nobody online, and it's only our staff that's identified an issue. No public is calling in.
You want to get an update?
We're good. Yes.
Cody, do you want to just give us some sort of an update and then have the city attorney weigh in on it?
Is there anything to update?
No, so, or of what just happened?
Yeah.
Yeah, so when we
Hang
had
on.
that little power...
Are we back on in the back with our mics?
Yeah, the mics are still
Okay.
hot. So when we had that power glitch, it kicked me off. Zoom.
Cody, let me call us back
Oh,
into.
sorry.
So we are going to restart the Board of Zoning Appeals meeting for July 21st, 2020, after our recess to investigate technical issues. Cody, would you please give us an update?
Yes, so when we had the power glitch, it kicked me off of Zoom and Facebook, and the people that were watching it were wondering why there was a black screen. So that's when our IT called and kind of let me know. So, but I did tell them that we're coming up to an end, and for the people viewing, we're going to give them a synopsis tomorrow on what happened. So that's.
Were there any members of public logged in as participants?
For Zoom, there was nobody watching, but for anybody on Facebook, I can't see that end. But the communications team did tell me that they're going to do a write-up tomorrow.
And our phone line has
Yeah.
no issues if someone were to call.
Correct. Yeah. So everything's fine. They were just wondering what was going on.
Based on what I've heard, Facebook is not an available method to participate. It's only a method by which they might watch the meeting, and they will be able to get that information. Since there was no one waiting on Zoom, and since they'd still have the option to call in if they wanted to participate remotely, I'm comfortable with the board going ahead and proceeding with the meeting live here and through the phone options.
Okay.
I do want to remind the board that we put it on Granicus and then Cody clips it and actually posts it.
So when
You can
you're
go
saying
back
that
and look
the
at
meetings are
any-
recorded and available for review by the public at future dates?
Every single meeting we've ever had is online, and it's recorded and videoed, and people can look back at any meeting.
Okay. Well, with staff and council's explanation, let's proceed. In picking up where we left off, we were narrowing down our discussion of questions to the applicant and staff before we move to public comment. That's where we are in the meeting. So it's step number 5. The board is addressing questions to the applicant. Are there any additional questions for the applicant or at this point? Okay, so you've seen before, we'll pause for public comment. You'll have an opportunity to make a closing remark if you care. Okay. So with that, I'll make note that we'll move to public comment. 10-minute sessions for each. 10 minutes to speak in favor combined and 10 minutes to speak in opposition. If there are any applicants that anyone from the public wishing to speak via Zoom or by phone, please make yourself known. If you'd like to make a comment via Zoom, click on the icon labeled Participants at the bottom of your screen and then click the button labeled Raise Hand. If you're calling into the meeting, you can raise your hand by pressing *9 on your keypad. Once the moderator calls your name, please unmute yourself by clicking on the microphone button on the bottom of your screen or by pressing *6 on your phone. Do we have any public participation on Zoom
We do not.
and by phone?
We do not.
Okay. So I'll address the audience here. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application? Okay. Seeing no interest in public comment in favor, is there anyone here to speak in opposition to this application? Hearing and seeing no public comment interest, the applicant, you do have an opportunity for making any closing comments or rebuttals before we address final questions and move to a motion.
I don't have any questions.
Okay, so the applicant does not wish to make a closing comment or rebuttal. Are there any final questions for the applicant or staff before we move into a motion? Okay, I'll note that the public comment is closed, and I'll open the floor for a motion and a second. I make a motion to approve V20-13 to allow an existing house to be located in the 75-foot impervious setback and to allow a pool deck, and pool equipment to encroach into the 75-foot impervious setback. This is based on the plans submitted by Neptune Pools by Solar Land Surveying dated 12/24/19 with the following conditions. Place a temporary construction fence barrier along the construction area no further than 10 feet into the 50-foot undisturbed buffer. This area shall be replanted prior to completion of construction. No structure, wall, foundation, pool encroachments are permitted into the 50-foot buffer. A drainage plan will be required to include flow wells to mitigate runoff. Pool deck surface to utilize pervious pavers. That's it for my conditions.
Mr. Chairman, can you clarify the date on the plans that you're working off of? Because we also have a plan that's dated July 12th, 2020.
Yes, that's my error. It should be, I see July 16th, 2020 received. Where's the actual?
Bottom right.
Bottom right.
So a correction on the on the Neptune Pools drawing site plan should be dated July 12th, 2020. So that is Neptune Pools site plan. Okay, the motion has not received a second. I'll open the floor back up for another motion.
No, I'll second the motion.
Oh, you'd like to second the motion? Okay. So we have a motion as built to the Neptune Pool site plan with no encroachment into the buffer, placement of a temporary construction fence. I'm just paraphrasing. To mitigate any construction intrusion into the 50-foot and a requirement to replant any intrusion during construction. Clearly stating no structure, wall, foundation, or pool shall encroach into the 50-foot buffer. A drainage plan, mitigation plan with flow wells will be required, and the pool deck surface to utilize pervious pavers. I would just note that I feel that this extensive list of conditions helps to mitigate the intrusion into this impervious setback and also satisfies the requirement, the four considerations for our variances. Is there any discussion regarding this?
I do have a question, and I'm sorry, this is my third meeting, so I'm going to learn as I go. I'm here representing neighbors, you're a neighbor, so I'm going to ask, because I had these questions when I was building a pool. Part of having a paver, whether it's a brick look-alike paver or graystone paver or whatever, part of having a paver, you have the option of sealing that paver to give it a certain look. With impervious pavers, it's going to take away from that opportunity. If he were to want to do a concrete decking that was not pervious and had drainage into a water dispersing type reservoir, would that not be permeating water back into the soil of the permeation required area or impervious area? I don't want to take away from our common sense approach to imposing extra cost on our neighbor. If this is something that is going to catch water, put it into a reservoir and disperse that water back into the land that we're trying to protect in the first place with the ordinance. Is there any? I guess
we're not open for discussion.
Okay.
The discussion is with us.
Okay. So
amongst
back
us.
to you.
I have a comment.
Go ahead, please, Don.
I don't disagree with your concern about putting the conditions on these people. However, what is the purpose of the 25-foot extra impervious setback that the city of Milton has put there? I mean, if we followed what you're saying, there would be no need to have that at all. We would just let anything run down into the 50-foot and try to catch it there. I mean, I guess I would question why didn't, in infinite wisdom, why does the code not say it's okay, we don't have to have a 25-foot impervious setback, we'll just let all the water be caught somewhere within the 50-foot setback. I don't think that's what the intent of the ordinance is. The intent of the ordinance is to say we don't really want anything in that 25-foot impervious setback.
Okay.
I see what we're doing as helping the applicant to allow us not to deny this request. I mean,
So,
this could be outright denied because of its encroachment into that buffer. And I think we're sort of trying to help out here and say, yeah, let's mitigate this so it has the least impact to the.
I hear your concerns. Where is the? Do you, based on your opposition, you must know where the reservoir is going to be located on this site plan.
I think what the comment said, it had to be located. Oh, that was the fence. No, the fence was.
So if the
within 10
reservoir
feet.
that was catching the water that's dispersing it is inside of the non-pervious zone, how would that affect you?
Rather than us try to debate as laypersons on this board, who are, again,
Learning as I go, but have
appointed
questions.
by to serve the citizens, I think it's important to defer to the city staff and the city experts who've given us some guidance throughout this conversation, who also would recommend flow wells and pervious pavers. It's not unusual for us to require those in cases where a structure like a pool deck is being built in the impervious setback. It's not out of the ordinary to have that request. Given the applicant is started with pavers as their original pool deck material, moving to pervious pavers is not a big jump. Okay. As the city architect pointed out, if they were starting from a poured concrete deck and we were moving them towards the pervious pavers, that would be a bigger step in terms of a financial investment. So I think in terms of mitigation, as Bob's pointed out, or Don has pointed out, what we're trying to do is come up with appropriate mitigation to help this project go forward, as well as protect the streams, which is why this buffer is here.
Okay.
Is there further discussion?
Am I allowed to talk again? No. At this point in time,
The public comment period is closed. So I was just going to, if there is no further discussion, I'll quickly restate the motion is to approve to allow the existing house to be located in the 75-foot impervious setback. Item 2, to allow a pool deck, and pool equipment to encroach into the 75-foot impervious setback only, per the site plan by Neptune Pools. Temporary construction fence along the, with no further than 10 foot into the 50-foot undisturbed buffer, and that area shall be replanted. No structure, walls, foundations, pools are to be constructed in the 50-foot buffer, including the pump pool lines. Drainage plans to be required, and pool deck surface to be pervious pavers. All those in favor of approval with conditions say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. The motion to approve passed unanimous. good luck with your project, and I'd ask you to continue to stay engaged with the city staff as you move on to the next step of your project. The next item on our agenda would be item number 7, consideration of appeals and secondary variances.
We do not have any.
None. Item 8 is old business. I don't believe we had any.
I have nothing to bring up for under old business.
Item, yes.
Can I bring up old business?
Old, sure.
I think it's old.
Okay.
Our emails with the city, are we supposed to be checking those?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I was able to set mine up pretty easily on my phone.
Okay. I just realized I had not checked. Does anybody else get our emails?
Say that again.
So would we be emailed as a board?
Yes.
So all of us would receive the email, not just me individually?
They're individual email accounts. So Kim Keller at cityofmilton.com would be your account. The emails that I've received have been distribution emails from the city of Milton generally, as well as from Cody regarding our staff material. So we should be corresponding both with staff as well as if there is any public interaction through the city email.
So Cody did send it to our personal email and our staff email,
yes,
right?
This time he did.
But that'll probably
If we
change.
don't get clearer voluntary adoption, we may have to change that to only have it submitted through the city of Milton.
I'll do better.
Hint, hint.
Kim, I'm doing all my shopping with my city email account. All my junk mail goes to that now.
May I suggest that is all subject to open record?
I'm not sure if this falls under old business or new business, but we did have a point that was brought up regarding the tree ordinance. Has there been any progress in that being adopted by council?
From what I've heard, they're asking for a deferral. Was that the last thing they were
But
wanting
it has
to
not
do?
been adopted because we don't
No.
need a training until it's adopted.
Correct.
That was something I think, Don, you
Yes.
brought up?
Yes,
Okay.
fine.
When I do hear something more set in stone, I will let the board know, and I'll get the proper training in place for everybody
Okay.
for when that time comes.
Thank you. Any new business, item number 9? Item number 10. Don, can you help us with that?
Make a motion that we adjourn?
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor of adjourning say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Or adjourned.